The rope swayed empty in the morning wind, creaking against the gallows beam like a broken clock counting down to nothing. Samuel Crawford had arrived too late for the hanging, or so he thought. The crowd was already dispersing when he spotted her. A slip of a girl, maybe 16, crumpled at the base of the platform steps. Her wrists bore the raw marks of rope, and dust clung to the torn fabric of what had once been a blue dress. The sheriff's men were mounting their horses, their job apparently done, but something wasn't right. Dead girls didn't breathe. This one's chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate rhythm. Samuel dismounted without thinking, his boots hitting the hard-packed earth with purpose. 30 years of ranching had taught him to read trouble in the tilt of a horizon, the way birds scattered before a storm. This felt like both. "Hey," he called to the nearest deputy, a man whose badge caught the harsh sunlight. "What happened here?" The deputy spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Justice happened. Horse thief got what was coming." He paused, studying Samuel's weathered face and the way his hand rested easy near his sidearm. "Though I reckon the rope snapped clean through. Damnedest thing." Samuel knelt beside the girl. Up close he could see the purple bruise circling her throat like a twisted necklace. Her eyes were closed, but her fingers twitched against the wooden planks, alive, fighting for each breath. The crowd hadn't bothered to check. In their minds, justice was justice, whether delivered by rope or providence. "She's breathing," Samuel said, but the deputy was already riding away. He gathered the girl in his arms, surprised by how little she weighed. She felt like drought-brittle tumbleweed, all sharp edges and hollow spaces. As he lifted her, something fell from her clenched fist, a small brass locket, tarnished green with age. Samuel pocketed it without looking. His ranch lay 15 miles north, through country that knew how to keep secrets. The girl stirred once during the ride, her lips moving soundlessly, but her eyes remained closed. Samuel found himself whispering reassurances to the wind, promises he wasn't sure he could keep. By the time they reached his homestead, shadows stretched long across the prairie grass. The girl's breathing had steadied, but she hadn't awakened. Samuel carried her inside, past the empty rooms that echoed with 20 years of solitude, and laid her on the bed where his wife used to sleep. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was coming. The girl woke 3 days later with eyes the color of winter sky and a voice like broken glass. Samuel had kept vigil, spooning broth between her cracked lips and changing the bandages around her throat. He'd done the same for injured cattle, for horses with broken legs, but this felt different, more complicated. The law thought she was dead. That made her his responsibility, or his burden. He wasn't sure which. When her eyes finally opened, they held no gratitude, only wariness. "Where?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "My ranch," Samuel said from the chair beside the bed. "You're safe." She tried to sit up, winced and fell back against the pillow. Her gaze swept the room, taking in the faded wallpaper, the dust motes dancing in afternoon light, the absence of feminine touches. Why? It was a fair question. Samuel poured water from the pitcher on the nightstand, helped her drink. Seemed like the right thing to do, right? She tasted the word like it was foreign. "You know what they said I did, stole horses. Did you believe them?" Samuel studied her face, too thin, too young for the hardness in her eyes. "I've seen horse thieves. You don't strike me as the type." Something shifted in her expression, not trust, but a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. "They weren't wrong exactly. I did take a horse, just not for the reasons they said." Samuel waited. Patience was a rancher's virtue, learned from watching seasons change and crops grow. "I was running," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "from men who hurt people, who hurt children." Her fingers found the bruise on her throat. "The horse belonged to one of them. I figured he owed me." The thunder was closer now, rattling the windows. Samuel thought about the locket in his pocket, still unexamined, about the choice he'd made 3 days ago, and the choice he was making now. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl hesitated, then spoke a single word that hit Samuel like a bullet to the chest. Catherine. 20 years collapsed in an instant. 20 years since he'd heard that name spoken aloud, since he'd whispered it to empty rooms and graves. His Catherine had been 6 when the fever took her, golden-haired and laughing, nothing like this hollow-eyed survivor, but the name hung in the air between them, like a ghost made flesh. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall. The storm broke just after midnight, but it was the sound of hoofbeats that woke Samuel from his chair. Through the rain-streaked window, he counted 6 riders approaching fast, their lanterns cutting yellow holes in the darkness. Catherine. He shook her shoulder gently. She came awake instantly, alert as a cornered animal. Company's coming. Armed company. She was already moving, swinging her legs over the side of the bed despite the pain. They found me. Who? The Garrett brothers. The ones I ran from. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she reached for her boots. They must have figured out the hanging failed. Samuel's mind raced. 6 men probably armed with more than lanterns. His ranch sat in a valley with limited cover, and no neighbors within shouting distance. He'd faced down rustlers before, but never with someone else's life hanging in the balance. The riders pulled up in his yard, horses stamping and snorting in the rain. Samuel recognized the type. Men who wore violence like comfortable clothes, who saw other people as obstacles or opportunities. Their leader, a bear of a man with a black beard, dismounted and approached the porch. Crawford, the voice carried despite the storm. We know you got her. Send the girl out and we'll leave peaceful. Samuel opened the door just wide enough to show himself, keeping his rifle visible. Don't know what you're talking about. The horse thief, little Catherine Garrett. She's our kin, and she's caused enough trouble. The man's smile was all teeth, no warmth. We aim to take her home. Behind him, Samuel heard Catherine's sharp intake of breath. The name hit him again. Garrett. She wasn't just Catherine, she was Catherine Garrett, which made these men her family, the ones she'd run from. Funny thing about family, Samuel called back. Sometimes they're the last people you want to go home to. The bearded man's smile faded. You calling us liars, Crawford? I'm saying a girl doesn't usually steal horses and risk hanging just to visit relatives. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the scene like a photographer's flash. Samuel could see it all clearly. The mud, the horses, the hands resting on gun butts. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. Last chance, the bearded man said. Send her out, or we come in. Catherine stepped up beside Samuel, ignoring his restraining hand. The lantern light caught the bruises on her throat, the defiance in her eyes. I'm not going anywhere with you, Uncle Marcus. Not ever again. Marcus Garrett's face went dark as the storm clouds. You ungrateful little. His words were lost in thunder, but his intent was clear. Samuel felt the moment break like a dam giving way. The shooting started before the echo faded. The gunfight lasted 3 minutes but felt like hours. Samuel's military training, buried under 20 years of ranching, surfaced like muscle memory. He moved from window to window, making his shots count while Catherine reloaded for him with steady hands that belied her age. When the smoke cleared, 2 of the Garrett brothers lay still in the mud. The others had fled, carrying their wounded leader between them. But victory felt hollow when Samuel saw the blood spreading across Catherine's shoulder, where a bullet had found its mark. He tended her wound by lamplight, his hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. She watched him work without complaint, though he could see the pain in the tightness around her eyes. Thank you, she said when he finished wrapping the bandage. Don't thank me yet. They'll be back with more men. No. Catherine's voice carried quiet certainty. Marcus is proud, but he's not stupid. He lost 2 boys tonight and nearly lost his own life. He'll cut his losses and tell everyone I died in the hanging like I was supposed to. Samuel sank into the chair beside the bed, suddenly feeling every one of his 53 years. What now? Catherine reached into her pocket and pulled out the brass locket he'd found at the gallows. She'd reclaimed it while he wasn't looking. With careful fingers, she opened it to reveal a tiny photograph, a fair-haired little girl with laughing eyes. This was my sister, she said quietly. Sarah. She was 6 when Uncle Marcus decided she was old enough for his attention. I tried to protect her, but I was only 12 myself. The locket snapped shut with a soft click. She died that winter. Fever, they said. But I knew better. Samuel's throat tightened. 6 years old, the same age as Catherine had been. I ran the first time when I was 13. They caught me, brought me back, said I belonged to the family. That family takes care of family. Her laugh was bitter as medicine. I ran again at 14, 15, 16. Each time they found me. This time was different. This time I took something that mattered to them. Marcus's prize stallion. I knew they'd hang me for it. But I thought dying might be better than going back. She looked up at Samuel then, and he saw not the hollow-eyed survivor but the frightened child she'd been, the woman she was becoming. You gave me something I thought I'd lost. What's that? Choice. The choice to live on my own terms. Outside, the storm was moving east, leaving behind the clean smell of rain and possibility. Dawn broke clear and cold, painting the prairie grass silver with dew. Samuel found Catherine on the porch, watching the sunrise with a cup of coffee steaming in her hands. The bandage on her shoulder was clean, and color had returned to her cheeks. Feeling better? He asked, settling into the chair beside her. Different, she said after a moment, like I'm finally breathing all the way down to my toes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the day wake up around them. In the distance cattle grazed peacefully, and birds called from the fence posts. It was the kind of morning that made a person believe in second chances. I've been thinking, Samuel said eventually, this ranch is too big for one man. Could use someone who knows how to handle trouble and isn't afraid of hard work. Catherine smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Crawford? I'm offering you a home, if you want it. She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the endless sky. When she spoke, her voice was steady. My real name isn't Catherine Garrett. I took that name when I ran the first time, thought it might confuse them. My name is Catherine Morrison. My parents died when I was 8, and the Garretts took me and Sarah both. Samuel felt something shift in his chest, a loosening of grief he'd carried for 20 years.
Yes.
His Catherine was still gone, would always be gone, but this Catherine, alive, breathing, choosing her own path, felt like a gift he hadn't known he needed. Catherine Morrison, he said, tasting the name. That's a fine name for a rancher. She laughed then, bright and clear as creek water. I don't know the first thing about ranching. I don't know the first thing about having family again. Guess we'll learn together. The sun climbed higher, burning away the last traces of storm clouds. In the barn a horse whinnied, and somewhere in the distance a meadowlark sang. Samuel thought about the choices that had brought them to this moment. His choice to stop at the gallows, her choice to trust him, their shared choice to fight for something better than survival. 5 years later, when folks asked about the young woman who ran the Crawford Ranch with such fierce competence, Samuel would tell them she was his daughter, not by blood but by something stronger, choice and circumstance, and the kind of love that grows from shared storms weathered together. Catherine would smile at those moments, her hand unconsciously touching the small scar on her throat that had long since faded to a thin white line. She never spoke of the hanging, never mentioned the Garretts, but sometimes on storm-dark nights, Samuel would find her on the porch, watching lightning split the sky with eyes that remembered what it felt like to almost die. You saved me, she told him once during one of those vigils. No, Samuel replied, watching rain wash the world clean, we saved each other. The ranch prospered under their joint care, and Catherine Morrison became known throughout the territory as a woman who'd give you a fair deal and a firm handshake, who'd help a neighbor in need and never turned away someone looking for honest work. She never married, never felt the need. She'd found something rarer than romance. She'd found herself, and a father who loved her not in spite of her past, but because of the strength it had forged in her. And on quiet mornings when the coffee was strong and the sunrise painted the world gold, Catherine would think about the girl she'd been, hanging by a thread between life and death, and marvel at the beautiful distance she'd traveled from that gallows to this porch, from that fear to this peace. The rope had broken, but she had not. That, she thought, made all the difference.